It's time for the Cincinnati Reds to put Spencer Steer in his rightful spot in the batting order. We'll tell you where he should be hitting on today's Locked On Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Reds with myself, Jeff Carr, and my co-host, Stephen Offenbaker. We are lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans that have turned an addiction to this team into information for you. Thank you for making Locked On Reds part of your day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And speaking of every day, shout out to our everydayers who are out there. You guys and gals are what makes this show go. If you're not an everydayer, just subscribe. That way you don't miss any episodes we got coming for you, because we're here all season long. On today's show, we are going to look at the inspirational figure and how his legend continues to grow, Tejay Antone. We're also going to talk about why the naysayers about Elly De La Cruz got it all wrong, baby. But before we get to all of that, we are going to start with the topic du jour and what's on everyone's mind as we just saw multiple rallies die on Tuesday night, because the middle of the order has become a black hole. And the guy who leads the major leagues, yes, I said it, the major leagues, in RBIs, albeit 11 games in, Spencer Steer, is batting 7th? That needs to change, Steve.
Yeah, it's definitely time to shake things up. The team needs a little bit of a spark. And I can hear people saying, but they scored 5 runs. They've scored, they're scoring runs. In fact, they're on a clip. On tape. They're on a clip to be in the neighborhood of where you said they might be for the season when we talked about how this team could score. But obviously there are guys that are struggling. And I am a firm believer in when guys are struggling, mix it up, shake it up, break it up, do something different, because as you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. The lineup that David Bell's been running out there has had some problems, has had some struggles, and it's time to mix it up a little bit. And I think you're absolutely right in that Spencer Steer has been the guy driving this lineup in the absence of TJ Friedel, in the absence of Matt McClain, guys that are out hurt. I think it's time to reward him for that, and to also recognize the fact that he's your best producer right now, and he needs to be in the heart of this lineup.
He absolutely needs to be, and there's multiple reasons why. I mean, it's early on, and the guys are going to break out of slumps and things like that because it's a long season. You're not in a slump for an entire season. You're also not on top of the mountain for an entire season. It's just how the marathon of baseball goes. But I was looking at Baseball Reference, and you can do all these different splits and stuff for the team, like for hitting stats and pitching stats and stuff like this. And one of my favorite things is to look at, hitting stats by batting order position. So the guy who bats first, the guy who bats second, the guy who bats third, all that other stuff. When you go down the order, you've got things like the guy who bats first in the Reds order has an OPS of like 693. Now that's low because the slugging's not very high, but the guy who bats first, which generally has been Jonathan India, has been getting on base almost 40% of the time. Then you get to the number 2 spot that's been Spencer Steer against lefties, and it's been Will Benson against righties. That OPS shoots up to like 960. Then you get to the 3 hole. The OPS is like 380. The OPS, the on-base plus slugging, is like 380. Then you get to the 4 hole, the on-base plus slugging is like 600, just barely. Those 2 spots have killed the Reds this year. They need to shuffle it up. And the obvious answer to me is you got to put Spencer Steer somewhere in there, because look at this. And real quick, before we jump into what the lineups should look like, I created this handy little graphic here for us. This is from Baseball Savant. Red is good, blue is bad. Who you picking?
And Jeff, let me jump in there just for a second for the audio folks. So Jeff created this graphic that's up on the screen right now from Baseball Savant. It shows color codes based on performance. If you see red in this graphic, red is good, blue is bad, is like Jeff was saying. So there's 3 graphics representing 3 players that we're looking at right now. And one of the 3 has a ton of red in it. Obviously, that is the guy you're going to pick to be your cleanup hitter.
And that's Spencer Steer. He has absolutely murdered baseball so far this season in this very early going. The other two, so the top left one, if you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening, the top left one has a little bit of red, but a lot of blue as well. That is Christian Encarnacion-Strand. And then on the bottom, it's all blue, baby. And in a couple of cases, it's very, very blue. That is Jeimer Candelario, who both these guys have very interesting anecdotal stats. Jeimer Candelario, 0 barrels so far this year. And CES, 0 walks so far this year. These guys don't need to be taken out of the lineup. They just need to be bumped down.
Let's be clear. We're not talking about benching anybody. We're talking about, especially with this team as banged up as it is, we are definitely not talking about benching anybody, but we are talking about shaking it up. And there's a way to do this, Jeff. Right-handed hitters. Keep Jonathan India up top. That has been working. As you said, he's on base 40% of the time versus right-handed pitchers again now. India leading off. I'm going to keep our man, Will Benson, your man, our man.
Oh,
I guess you still get to.
Everyday Will.
Yeah. Everyday Will batting second. Elly De La Cruz, who we're going to talk a lot about coming up. So I'm not going to spoil it by digging into why. He's the number 3 hitter on this team right now. He needs to be batting third.
Lots of reasons as to why, but yeah.
Lots of reasons that we're going to get into here in the next segment. Spencer Steer, because of the reasons we just talked about, he is your new cleanup hitter. You set the table with those top 3 guys. You get Steer in there to rack up that RBI total, let him hit for some power. Now you get into these guys that are struggling. Number 5, I go with CES. Number 6, I go with Candelario. Number 7, I put Jake Fraley there because hopefully those 2 guys are going to start to break out of it and Fraley can drive them in. Batting 8th, I go with Tyler Stevenson. And then 9, because it's a right-handed pitcher, I've got Nick Martini batting 9th and playing DH because Nick Martini hasn't quite delivered with the flair that he did the first week or so of the season. But right now, that's who we've got. So he's going to be out there being the designated hitter against right-handed pitching.
Yeah, and then you look at, you flip it around against lefties, India still leads off. Then you've got Stuart Fairchild batting second. Reason for that dude's on-base percentage is just phenomenal.
And I can hear people like, what? What did they say? These Stuart Fairchild haters said bat him second. Yeah, you know what? Right now, his splits are great. A small sample size, yes. But right now, his splits batting against left-handed pitchers, Jeff, batting average, 385. On base, 500. Slugging's not quite there. It's at 385. But if getting on half the time, put him in the number 2 spot.
And look, we're talking about shaking up the lineup, right? When you shake up the lineup, you move people around, and Stuart Fairchild has shown that he at least deserves to be up there. If he's going to be on base for the next couple of guys, then that's going to be awesome. You're talking about India on base 40% of the time, Stuart Fairchild, at least against lefties, on base 50% of the time. Then you got Elly and then Spencer Steer, 3-4. I don't know why we were saying this in spring training. It should have been 3-4, but yeah, move him here now. Then you have CES.
Hey, stop blowing your own horn. I've been told.
I'm tooting it. But CES batting 5th, Candy batting 6th. Then you got Santiago Espinal because you'll have India DHing against lefties. You have Espinal batting 7th and playing second base. Tyler Stevenson batting 8th, playing catcher, and then Will Benson back into the best number 9 hitter in baseball. He's going to be playing right field and batting 9th. I have no notes. We kind of got into a discussion a little bit about moving Fairchild in and around, but I love the on-base percentage there, so I walk back.
And like you said, it's the whole point of this is to shake up the lineup and put these guys in these positions until somebody plays well enough to take it away from another guy. Spencer Steer is clearly the guy that should be the cleanup hitter on this team right now until such time that either CES or Candelario or somebody else plays in such a way that you're like, oh, we need to move Spencer up a spot or move Spencer behind this guy because he's got the hot hand. I'm not a subscriber to this. We're setting the lineup on opening day. These are our 9 guys. This is what we're doing. I do not believe in that. You play the hot hands, you shake it up when you have to, and you do things to help this team win. And David Bell needs to kind of get a little bit more motivated on helping put this team in a position to win.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was texting back and forth with our Locked On Cardinals host, JD Haffron, because he was actually at this game on Tuesday night. And he was like, why on earth is Elly and Steer batting 6-7, and you got CES and Candelario batting 3-4? And I'm like, honestly, I think at this point, it's David Bell trying to show confidence in these guys, but like you can show confidence in them by keeping them in the lineup, but bumping them down a little bit. Right now, Spencer Steer and Elly De La Cruz are the two most deserving guys of at bats. Like if you lined up the two guys that deserve the most at bats on the team, those guys, it's 1-2. Spencer Steer is murdering the baseball in every single way right now, and he is having great at bats to boot. Then you have Elly, who is just on fire for these last couple of games. And again, all of this is tiny sample size beginning of the season, but this is how it stacks up. Baseball's 162 games. You don't need to force a square peg into a round hole. If somebody's hot, feature that guy. And that is exactly what David Bell should be doing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's no question in my mind. Spencer Steer should be batting fourth every day until someone takes it away. That's just the way this lineup should be built. All right, Jeff, coming up, the Send Elly to Louisville people are going to be really mad at us because we're going to take a closer look at the most electric player in baseball and some of the unusual stats that he's putting up right now. We've got Elly De La Cruz talk coming up next. Baseball season is officially underway. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the Diamond in Prize Picks entries. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, take your pick of more or less and add them to your Prize Picks entry today. Get in on the excitement with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can earn serious cash with your favorite baseball players. We're talking 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. You can put together a list that includes Frankie Montas, his strikeout totals. If you think he's going to have a lot, you just click more. If you think he's going to have a few, you can knock that down and pick less. Same goes for Elly De La Cruz and steals. I'm telling you, you're probably always going to want to click more. Whatever the number is, Elly's going to do more. Spencer Steer, RBIs. He is an RBI machine. Click more there as well. Download the app today, and you can use the code LOCKEDONMLB for your first deposit match of up to $100. Again, download the app. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB, and you're going to get up to $100 matched on your first deposit. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Oh, it's my turn to talk. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have you had to turn down the volume with all of the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 streaming sports channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all of the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news. It's streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Reds every day. I know, I'm sorry. Coming up on the next Locked On Reds, Hunter Green is on the mound, which means we'll have plenty to talk about. And we still have a lot to talk about because we need to spend a little bit more time on Elly De La Cruz. Now, we talked about Elly De La Electric. We talked about Elly De La inside the park. But there's a lot more interesting stats. There's a lot of stuff going on with Elly. And I don't know exactly where to begin on this, but there is a narrative out there. There is a segment of the Reds fandom, the Reds community, that is convinced that Elly De La Cruz is still just hurting this team with the way that he is playing offensively. And that's simply not the case.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because the easiest debate in the world is, well, he strikes out too much, and because of that, he's got to fix things. The biggest problem with that, though, is he's already looking pretty good with all those strikeouts. Like, when you look at the fact that he has struck out over 41% of the time, it's kind of a crazy number. He is currently in the bottom 2% of the major leagues right now as far as strikeout percentage goes. That could come down. I 1000% agree with you. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to stop there, then you're missing everything. Because we're talking about the most fun player in the entire world of baseball for a number of reasons. Not only because what he can do on the field, but because he is the most fun player in the world to debate about. There are so many different statistics, one way or the other, that make him the best to talk about. Because the strikeout rate is concerning, absolutely. But If you're going to be concerned about that, you need to understand what he's doing even with that. He is going bonkers. Talking about
he's 14 game hitting streak, slash line of 293, 356, 585.
Well, he didn't get a hit on Sunday, so the hitting streak.
No, did it break on Sunday?
Yeah. He got on base twice. He got hit by pitch. And
it just wasn't a hit. All right. Sorry about that. I was traveling a lot.
Okay.
But still, slash line remains 293, 356, 585. At one point in yesterday's game, before his final at bat, his batting average was a cool, crisp 300. So, yeah, the strikeout percentage is a bit of a problem, but at the same time, that's I take that slash line. I've got no problem with that. I feel like there's this, everything that he's doing well is being lost in that narrative of the strikeout percentage, so much so that we up until last week, we're still seeing people say, send him down.
Yeah, it's the glass half full versus the glass half empty, and that's the perfect way to look at Elly De La Cruz. Like, there's just far too many things that he does on a field to tell me that he's going to learn anything by going down to AAA. You're not going to all of a sudden learn how to not strike out because you went to Louisville. In fact, the only way, and there's a lot of discourse about this when it comes to the major leagues as a whole, not just the Reds, but development at AAA does not equal major league success anymore. People are saying that, look, you can only learn so much in the minor leagues. Mm-hmm. At some point, you need to bring them up to the majors. Honestly, the Orioles showed us another bullet point in that argument yesterday because they called up Jackson Holliday, and a lot of folks were just like, well, if they were playing service time manipulation stuff with him, this is too early to call him up. It's just about development. How do you develop guys better? You develop them at the major league level. But even beyond the crazy stat or the crazy slash line that you factor in to the strikeout rate and all this other stuff, he's got a very interesting stat because isolated power, it's not something we talk about a lot, but it is a very interesting stat. It is basically the idea of a player's batting average if you just take away singles. Singles don't count. So for guys that are just really good at dinking and dunking and getting the ball where they ain't and all that other stuff, isolated power is not a great stat for them. But right now, Elly De La Cruz has a 293 batting average. He also has a 293 isolated power because his slugging percentage is so high. The abilities that he has on the field, the power, the speed, all of it put together creates such a unique baseball player that there is absolutely no chance, none whatsoever, that he or the Reds are benefited from him being out of the lineup.
No, and you want to talk about the fact that he's projecting right now to steal over 90 bases this season?
Yeah, if you just average it out based on the bases that he has stolen and you multiply it out and all this other stuff, do maths, he's looking at 96 steals right now. Yeah, I said it, 96. Remember, we said the over-under before the season was 40.5. They blow that out of the water two times over.
So we talked about him being the number 3 hitter, and we didn't talk a lot about that there in the first segment because we had this coming. But all of these things combined to make him the ideal candidate to be in that 3 slot right now.
Yes.
I worry a little bit about putting Will Benson and Indy in front of him on the base pass. I don't know that that's going to hurt him as far as his ability to steal and use his speed as an advantage. I think Fairchild runs a little bit better than India does in that left-handed lineup. So Fairchild can run and try and get out of the way a little bit. But by and large, you look at what Elly's doing production-wise, and then you put Spencer Steer right behind him in that lineup. That is a pretty dramatic change to what the lineup's doing right now. That is a solid 1-2 punch there in the 3-4 spots in the lineup.
Well, and you bring up an interesting point. If he continues to get on base at this clip, and I'm not even talking about the batting average or the slugging percentage or all that stuff, but if he continues to get on base around 36, 37, 38% of the time, we will have a conversation about him leading off because yes, you want him leading every base runner.
And remember that this is the configuration with who we got right now. TJ Friedl is coming. Yeah. He's having a check-in MRI today. They're going to scan his wrist. And this is in the timeline where this is in the timeline where we were going to get a timeline to get a timeline. So after this scan, they're going to tell us when he's going to be back. When he comes back, Friedl, Elly, 1-2, I like that lineup. I think that works because Friedel's fast enough to not gum up the works if Elly gets on base behind him. So I like that. And I really envision a scenario where sometime mid-June, we do have a lineup that goes Friedel, De La Cruz, insert whoever has improved to be your number 3 hitter, Spencer Steer. I think that's a great 1, 2, 3, 4.
Can you imagine if McLean, and they're saying McLean might come back in August or something like that? Like if McLean comes back healthy and he's batting third, that top third.
Well, that's the team we thought we were going to have, right? That's the lineup that we were salivating over getting to see play on the field, and then the baseball gods taketh away once again.
But look, it's clear Elly is a very important part of this team, like super important to the point that without him, they're not going anywhere. So stop it with all this stuff about him not playing, and by him not playing, that's going to help him and that's going to help the team. It's not. That's a horrible take. He is awesome. All right, let's look at somebody else who's awesome. Let's look at Tejay Antone, because the inspiring person that he is just continues to grow. We'll tell you why coming up next. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. I would like you to join the Locked On Reds Insiders group today. Text the word insider to 513-597-0944. You get a free 14-day trial. It'll be $4.99 a month after that. The whole point of it is to talk Reds baseball. Look, I'm the guy that everybody comes to about Reds news. Steve's the guy that everybody comes to about Reds news and stuff like that in our friend groups and stuff like that. I want you to be that person as well. Join the Locked On Reds Insiders and you'll become that. Again, text insider to 513-597-0944. Also, bookmark si.com/MLB/Reds for written content about your Cincinnati Reds. All right, Steve, there was some other news yesterday as the game came about. The Reds are very good. By the way, the Reds are very good about this, where they drop news as the first pitch is happening. I don't understand why they like to do this. But Tejay Antone said that he wants to come back, that he wants to work his way back. And all analysis aside, all boy, I don't know, all of those thoughts aside, I absolutely love this. I love the fact that he worked as hard as he did to get back from number 2. Now, with Tommy John surgery number 3, everything, nature, fans, I'm sure coaches probably talked to him about this, everything is telling him it's probably time to hang it up. And he absolutely refuses to do that. Dude's a warrior, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it right now. I'm saying right now, I am behind this 100%. Who am I to tell him no? Come back, man. I can't wait to see this happen.
I said yesterday, I just don't see how he can do this. But, I commend him for being willing to put in the work. He's done this twice. He knows how difficult what he's saying is going to be. But that tells me if there's anybody that can do it, it's him. He's done it twice. He's willing to put in the time and the effort. We've seen it. He's been very open about sharing his workouts and his rehab process and the things that he does. Anybody can pull it off. It's him. I think you're right. There will come a time where we're going to have to ask some hard questions about should he be allowed to pitch in a big league game again, but he's got to get to that level first. He's got to get back to that. And, I wish him nothing but the best, nothing but success. Something he did say that really grabbed my attention, really caught my ear, was that when he's done playing baseball, when he's retired, when whatever that looks like, whether he doesn't make it back or whether he does make it back and then ultimately retires down the road. What he said he wants to do is coach pitchers specifically that are returning from injury.
Yeah.
And I think that is phenomenal that he wants to take all of the lessons he's learned and what he's been able to do and help share that knowledge with others that are trying to fight their way back. I think that's fantastic.
It shows his character, and all of the reports and anytime you see him at like a community event or something like that, it seems like he is the most genuine type of person. And the fact that he comes out and he says this, it just adds to the legend that is Tejay Antone, the person. I mean, we can sit here and debate baseball statistics and what he has done on the field and all this other stuff, but he's the kind of guy that just makes it so easy to root for him. And hopefully one day we're talking about this, because it was something I looked it up and I'm like, man, has anybody come back from 3 Tommy Johns? And I think, wasn't Jose Rijo, didn't he have 3 Tommy John surgeries and come back? I know that there's a recent one, like in Reds history, Jose Rijo is that. There's a guy more recently for another team, Johnny Venters. I don't know if you remember him. He was a setup man for the Braves, 2010, 2011, 2012. He was actually really good, too. He had Tommy John surgery in 2012 and then went through a series of unfortunate events where he had 3 straight Tommy John surgeries. He still came back. He pitched in 2018 and he pitched in 2019. So that's kind of not necessarily the blueprint for Tejay Antone. I don't think there's such a thing as a blueprint for something like this. But if there's any sort of inspirational, like it could happen, Johnny Venters would be the guy to look at.
You're right. And Jose Rijo did have a 3rd Tommy John surgery. You're correct. I pulled that up.
It was, I mean, and it's cool to see guys come back, because look, as much as baseball is about the numbers, it's about the wins and the losses and things like this. These are also human people that are doing this. And Tejay Antone has worked all his life to be a Major League Baseball player. And so as long as he feels that he is in the mental space to do that, I think he's going to do that. And I'm very excited to see him work through this. Something else too, Steve, and spring training, I said some things about a certain relief pitcher that I felt the Reds didn't need him. I would like to walk back those comments. Ian Jabo, I got the chance to meet him in Dayton. I actually played a clip, my solo episode on Monday when you weren't with me, but I played a clip from the conversation that I had with him. Wish I could have played the whole thing. I mean, he was super genuine, super open. We were talking to him about his injury and coming back from it. He really, I mean, there was no like player speak or anything like that. Like he was just talking to us like we were some dudes and we were just hanging out. And off the record stuff, he was a lot of fun as well. I want him on this team, and I can't wait to see him come back. I walk back anything that I ever said about the fact that the Reds don't need him. I love him. I love Ian Jabo.
Well, as the guy that argued with you when you were talking that nonsense, welcome. Glad to have you on board. Listen, Ian Jabo, what he provided to the Cincinnati Reds in 2023, I don't think gets enough praise. I don't think it's valued enough. 74 appearances from Ian Jabo. All as he's done since coming to Cincinnati is more than double his previous year's appearances. They may still find a way to work him into 140 games this year. I don't know, but he was a workhorse and he struggled at times. There were times that he was lucky, and there are some things that are hidden in inherited runners and things like that. We know all that. But what we do know is when they needed an arm and David Bell had nobody else to point to, here came Ian Jabo every single time he was asked to come pitch. You can't really overstate how much the Reds need that guy in their bullpen. We've seen several situations this year already where I thought to myself, 6th inning spot, 7th inning spot, this would be a great spot for Ian Jabo if he was in the bullpen right now. He's going to be in this bullpen. They're going to activate him. You and I have spent a little bit of time trying to figure out what that's going to look like between Ian Jabo and Sam Moll. Hard decisions are coming. Hard choices are going to have to be made. But make no mistake, they're not going to expose Ian Jabo to waivers. They're not going to risk some other team taking him for free. He will be in this big league bullpen because he does not have options. That's the direction we're going. How he gets there, Who has to move aside? We don't know that yet. But Ian Jabo is coming, and I think he's a valuable addition to this bullpen. I think him coming will make this bullpen better.
And I didn't get to play it because there was music playing in the background, and royalties and all that other stuff would have messed with that. But I asked him the question. I was just like, 2022, you set your career high in appearances. Then 2023, you double that. How'd you feel coming into spring training? He's like, honestly, it's the best I've ever felt. And then, this BP session that he was throwing live BP back in Houston, and he tweaked his, a muscle in his forearm, something like that. And his physical therapist was just like, yeah, maybe you shut it down for a little bit. And that was the good decision, because he says that he feels like he's ready to go. He just needs to get built up and throwing pitches and stuff like that. So he's going to be ready whenever he comes back. He needs to throw some back-to-back days and stuff like that in Louisville. But he was very confident. It was almost as if, there was no thought to it. He just knew. He's like, yeah, I'm good. I ain't even worried about it. I'm ready to go. Suffice it to say, I am very excited about Ian Jabo getting back into this bullpen. Should be sooner rather than later. All right, that's going to be a great point for us to end it here. Hoping for Tejay Antone's quick recovery and getting back to the Reds, and the Locked On Reds podcast is behind him 100%, and can't wait for Ian Jabo to get back as well. But that's where we'll end it today. Thank you so much for checking out today's Locked On Reds podcast. Make sure, if you're not subscribed, to do so right now on your favorite podcasting app and right here on YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube and you're like, man, what do I do? Go out. We got links down in the description to a great podcast app where you can take us and you can listen on your phone. That way you don't have to watch and do the whole YouTube thing. And is somebody going to pull me over? We got all that. We got that covered. So follow that link down there so you can listen to us, because we're going to be with you all season long. Why, Steve?
Because we are going to keep you locked on Reds every single day.